Hello, in this video I want to show you how I clean up my watercolor art and turn it into an art print. Today I am using watercolor flowers that I painted and I scanned. The size of the watercolor paper is a little bit larger than this size of the plate in my scanner, so it gives me these extra shadows in the edges where it extends past the screen in the scanner. So I want to show you a little bit what to do when you have a very poor scan. This scan, it's bad, and not only because of these shadows, but also because when I scanned it, it's a little bit too light. So I want to show you a process that how I end up using my watercolors using a different method that I showed you before. I have an other video that I show you how to use this object selection tool in Affinity Photo. In this one I'll be using the magic wand or the selection brush tool. It's a little bit different, and you can try to use both, but I like using this magic wand when I have flower arrangements like this one. So the first step, as I always do, is I'm going to create a new layer right above this one. I'm going to fill that layer using the bucket. It's the letter G in your keyboard, or just select it from the flood fill tool in your tools panel. And then my original I want to duplicate, but this time I want to duplicate it twice because I want to be able to use one to set the selection and the other one to actually make the changes. So on the top one, the first thing I want to do is to go to my adjustments and add levels adjustment. When I have areas that I know that are going to be very challenging, one of the things that I prefer to do is just get this contrast really high at around 50% in the black level. When you go to the levels, the first one is the black level. I usually put it at around 50%. I know it's ugly, but at least it gives me enough contrast for a proper selection. I still have this shadow that I have to deal with, and I'll show you how I deal with it to remove it from my scan. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and merge that ugliness with my art, and remember I already had it duplicated. So the first thing I want to do is just go back to the magic wand, which is also called the flood selection tool. At the top you want to set the tolerance to something relatively small to start with, and you want to make sure in this contextual menu that you have contiguous selected. So I can start with 10%. Let's see how that looks. And then at the top selection, just select one of the white color areas where you see the majority of the color. Now we're going to have an issue with the shadows, but that's the next step. So now we have this shadow area that we want to select as well. So with the magic wand selected, it's called the flood selection tool. Just hit shift in your keyboard and select some of that area. It's going to select a little bit more of, it's going to add to that selection. See, it's adding a little bit of some of that area. So now the selection is looking a little bit better, but I still have some areas now that I want to remove from my selection. So I have some areas here. This one, it's selecting a little bit too much here. Obviously this one, it's not doing a very good job. So now what I do in order to deselect some of those areas, I go to the freehand selection tool. And remember, in one of the other videos I showed you, but again, just to make sure, if you hit shift in your keyboard, you can add to that selection, or if you hit alt, you can remove to that selection. So what I am going to do is to undo that and find the areas that I want to deselect. It looks like there's a lot of the areas that I want to deselect, so this is probably going to be a little bit tedious, or maybe we can try to do it fast over here. Um, it's the process, it's a little bit tedious, but it's a little bit better when you want to keep everything. You can try to use this object selection tool, but you are going to run into the same problem. So just easier to have a little bit of patience and make sure that you keep all the areas that you want to keep, and make sure that you have the right selection. And I am just adding some areas here. I want to add this area as well to my selection, just making sure that anything that I want to keep, I am using the Alt to remove from my original selection. And then this big flower, which I knew was going to be the big issue. So here, one of the things, we can do the selection and finish cleaning it up using the eraser, but just make sure we are let's see. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's add this little area here. Some of these we don't want to lose. Remove this area from the selection. Undo. Okay. And it's looking good. I think one more area, it's here, and this blue area here we want to remove from that selection. We definitely want to keep that. And we want to keep that. It's a little bit I think it's looking good. Almost done with all the areas that I want to keep. I think I have selected all the areas that I want to keep and just remove them from that original selection. And now what I want to do is hide that layer, move to the second layer where I have the other duplicate of my original art, and then in this one it's where I want to hit delete. And then because I have this pixel layer with the background, the black background, I can see that most of the background, it's already removed on that layer. I still have the ugly layer here. Hit escape. So we can get rid of it, we don't need it anymore. So just click on it, hit delete, and now we just finished cleaning up this one. The first thing here, some of the edges we can go ahead and clean up using the eraser, and that would give us we have a fairly clean look right now, and we have the brightness of the original art that we wanted to keep. And I think it's looking good. The next thing I want to do is to make sure that I go back to my magic wand, which is called the flood selection tool, and then select some of the areas that we kept originally, that are like white areas that need to be removed, and this area inside the flower. And I think here we can erase. There's a little bit here. Escape, I don't want to have that selection. Some of these I want to erase manually, so I'm just gonna end this area here, just clean it up just enough. So just erase and select. Then let's look good. That's looking good. It's the next step while I do this, it's basically to remove the white edges that you can see. Sometimes I do spend a little bit more time to just clean up some of these flowers a little bit. A lot of that it's going to get cleaned up once I smooth the edges a little bit, and that's the next step. So I want to select this area, go back to my tolerance. I want to make it just a little bit smaller, maybe 5, and then select again, and then that removes a lot less. Maybe even on this one could be even 2, and select again, and then that gives me a little bit better selection. Now let's take a look at these, and as you can see, it forms when you use this flood selection tool. You have these white edges, and the way that I usually remove those white edges is by, so you can see when you use this flood selection tool, you have these areas where it gives this little white line. So we want to eliminate that line. I have a macro that I created because I do this step all the time, so it does save me several clicks on it. But I'll show you first how to do it manually, and then we'll run the macro because it may need at least to run it twice. Actually, first let's run the macro and then we run it manually, because I want to remove first 2 pixels, and then maybe we'll remove an extra just 1 pixel from the selection. So go back to your selection tool. This macro, basically what it does is it shrinks the selection by 2 pixels, it feathers by 0.5, and then does inverses the selection and then deletes the excess. So let's see how that works. So you use control, click on the actual layer, so you load all the selection, and then as I run the macro, you'll see that it got rid of a lot of that excess. So that works really good. But in some areas you may need to remove an extra pixel, so I'll show you how to do that manually. Looking very good actually with just the 2 pixels. But let's say you want to remove an extra pixel of the whole selection. You can run the macro again, but just to show you how to do it manually, you load the selection. So it's basically control click on the actual on that icon in the layer, and then go to select, grow and shrink first, because we have selected the actual artwork. We want to reduce that selection, so just -1 pixel. Enter and hit apply. So that's just two clicks there. That saves me. And then select feather by 0.5, enter, hit apply. So then that kind of smooths out a little bit some of that selection. And then invert pixel selection. So you'll see that now instead of selecting the artwork, selecting everything outside of it. But just close enough to show you how much it's going to remove and how it's going to work. So now we just inverted the selection, so now we can just delete, and you see that it deleted 1 extra pixel. So everything is now clean. And then hit escape, and now I have the lovely artwork that it's ready to be turned into a art print. So I want to change the background. My background is black. I want to change it to a purple color because I kind of like this little bit of lavender, so I want to use that. The letter G in your keyboard, it's the bucket tool or the flood tool. So it just changes the color of your background. And the next thing I want to do, I want to select these, and I want to have it just a little bit darker on the flowers, or just a little bit more contrast. So I want to add an adjustment layer. I want to go to the actually the curves sometimes work, just enough. I like that just enough to make it a little bit darker. And I'm just gonna leave it as a separate non-destructive layer. And below that, and right above my background, this is my original, right above the background, I want to create a new pixel layer, and I want to add a little bit of go to my brushes, and I want to add a little bit of watercolor background. So I'll select some of my favorites are in here. This wet to wet is kind of fun. So I just add some color here and there in the background layer. Starting to look interesting. I like these large wash as well, and I just increase the size just enough, and just to make a little bit of watercolor background. I kind of like these a little bit, but there was another one that I like that it's like a dual color wash. I like this one as well from this brush set, and just big. That's a little bit too much. There's some two brushes here that are smudge brushes, so I like that one. This one is more water blender. I like this one to kind of get rid of some of that pattern that it's being created, so just moving some of that watercolor around to get rid of that. I like that. It's a little bit dark, and I kind of like the texture. It's looking good, but I think it is just a little bit too dark. So I want to change this, go back to my layers and change the opacity of this texture layer just enough. And the next step I want to do is to add a little bit more contrast on the edges. So I want to add a new layer right above that texture layer. This is my texture layer. I want to add a new layer, and then on this one I can go ahead and then just go back to my brushes. Let's try this gritty wash and see how it does. But I just want to add a little bit more, kind of frame the, go back to the brushes. I make sure I have the brush selected, and gritty wash. And come back and smudge that a little bit, but just building a little bit more color here on the edge to kind of frame this art piece. There's a few more things I still want to do on there. I kind of like that. Now I think first I want to go to the layer and lower the opacity just enough, and then I also want to go ahead and I can use this smudge tool here and to smudge these just enough. I can increase the strength a little bit here, let's say 75. Yeah, it's very faint, but you can see a little bit. So it's actually doing a little bit of the work. It's not, I think you can see. I kind of like that. One thing that I want to do is in the actual artwork. This is the artwork layer. I want to fix this flower a little bit. So I want to just use the eraser and then just go to my layer, make sure I have the eraser selected, and then just frame this flower a little bit better. So I want to erase this part. I think it's looking good, and I think this area here, smooth this out just enough, and then this area here, just clean it up just enough. Okay, I like this, and I think it's a lovely art print. that you can now actually, one thing that we can do now that we are here is to get these flower, maybe get it a little bit closer. That could be something that we can do, but the first thing I want to do is to go back to that layer, use the selection, and make sure that it's centered. It doesn't look very centered to me. Okay, and now it's centered, and we have a lovely art print, or actually we can just use these as a card. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot. Bye bye.